Hey everybody, it's Brian from Summit Racing, and behind me we have our latest project car. It's a Tesla Model 3 dual motor performance. It's pretty good out of the box. It runs high 11s in the quarter mile, seats 4. It's a lot like driving your iPhone. The only issue with it is it's still 4,150 pounds. It's still on all-season wheels and tires. Suspension is good, but not great. The first question to ask ourselves is, what do we want to do with it? Well, we have to think like the owners will, right? So we don't want to just go put coilovers on it and slam it on the ground and go racing. We're thinking we're going to take it autocrossing, probably take it to the drag strip, and while we're at it, we want to take it to the standing mile in Arkansas with the ECTA. So with that, we're thinking we're going to go with the Eibach Pro Kit Plus. It's a very good suspension system. It's got, it lowers the car in the front and the back a little over an inch, so it's some, but not too much. It also works with the factory dampers. The sway bars are great. They're adjustable front to back, so we can dial in the oversteer, understeer, front to back, and get exactly the balance that we're looking for. So with that, the other thing we need to do, because the car is a little heavy, we're going to throw in some Hawk HPS pads. Those are a pretty cool pad in that they're not really bitey or anything like that, but they're progressive without being too aggressive. They're low dust, they work when they're cold, so just a really nice street pad on the thing. And finally, we're going to throw on some better wheels and tires on the thing. They're kind of narrow, again, all-season tires. We're going to throw on some BFG Rival S's. We've got some Forge Star 19 by 9.5 wheels, so we're going to try to fit a 275 front and rear. All the while, we're going to take you from stock autocross to modded autocross to, to the drag strip. We're going to show you what the gains do, step by step by step, so you know the best place to spend your money. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get the car up in the air and start wrenching. Now we're just going to go ahead and pull the aero cover underneath the front of it, pull the wheels and tires on all four corners. There's an aero cover in the back, and basically the frunk, we're just going to pop the hood, pull that out, and it gives us access to the top of the struts, etc. So with that, we'll go ahead and just pull out the first aero panel. Love you, Milwaukee. All right, the back is going to be a little bit more simple. I don't think we have to pull off the entire rear aero covers on the car, but the lower control arms do have aero covers on them. So when we're in there with the floor jack, we don't want to bust those up. There is one single 10mm bolt. We're going to go ahead and remove that and do it on both sides. So these covers are pretty cool. You wouldn't think that they actually do a lot, but when the suspension is actually all the way compressed, it smooths the air up, basically coming off the batteries up front and coming into this rear area here. So, okay, so we're at the back of the car. We do have a sway bar on the left and the right, the end links. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the end links off that, so that way when we try to drop one side, it's not being held up in place by the other side of the car, but pretty straightforward in the back. We did just disconnect the end links, so the suspension could go in a full droop independently per side. This bolt right here is our lower shock mount. And Barry, my lovely assistant, is going to go ahead and hold the wrench today. Thank you, Barry. And we're going to break it loose basically with the exact same 21mm socket that we used for the lugs on the wheels. If you notice this, we have our transmission jack up in a place that's giving it a little bit of load on the rear suspension. We have to be very, very careful when we go ahead and lower this car now, because it has the full suspension spring force on it. So when we come down with this, we're going to be very, very careful to be very incremental when we lower this control arm. All right, so there we are. I can feel quite a bit of load coming off this already. We just disconnected the end links and we went ahead and lowered it, and it does not have enough freedom because we have a couple other control arms attached to this. So what I'm going to do next is I put our transmission jack over here under the control arm. We're going to go ahead and bust the spindle loose over here with this bolt. That's going to allow it basically to do what it does. And then we're going to slowly take pressure off this arm and lower it. And then the spring is going to pop right out, right? Here we go. There we go. All right, folks, so we had our transmission jack. It's holding things up in place. We're going to go ahead and keep removing load off of it. There's not a lot of spring pressure left, but always be careful. Safety first. It's a little frozen on the bushings, not bad. All right, gang, so we went ahead and pulled all the springs out of the back, and we're going to go ahead and open our shiny new Eibach box, Eibach Pro Kit Plus box, and let's see what we got. And as expected, we have springs, 4 of them. And on top of that, we have very nice stickers for you to give to your kid or apply to your toolbox or your car. So one other thing about the springs, there are front and rears, in the car specifically. So as we mentioned before, you're going to want to make sure you have the orientation right, and fronts in the front and back in the back. Now with any Eibach Pro Kit Plus type of spring, we're going to lower the car 1.3 inches in the back, 1 inch in the front. The cool thing about these is they're progressively wound, meaning that when it's at ride height, when you're not cornering, you're going to feel about the same type of ride that the car came with from the factory. But as it gets into compression, when you're going around a corner, when the car starts to lean very rapidly, it increases compression. So what that does is basically, it keeps the car flatter. You're going to feel more in control with it, and as always, it's an Eibach spring, the best in the world. So we're going to go ahead and get to work, install these springs in the back, and then move to the front of the car. All right, folks, so here's where we are with the project. We lowered the control arms, we pulled the spring out, and now is a great time for us to go ahead and get to the rear sway bar. I didn't think about it before, but sure enough, to actually get to the mounts of the sway bar, I've got to go ahead and pull off this lower aero tray in the back. That gives us access, so we're going to go ahead and pop the bar in there and get everything up in place and put springs back into place. So here we go. 10mm bolts on everything. I'm going to get a big face full of dirt, always good. Lovely. Now we have access to a motor. So this is the Tesla 3L motor performance, you guys know. It is a thing of beauty, and it's great. Sway bar, never been an easier car to change out a sway bar on in the back. So we're just going to pop these loose and get everything put back up into place. Remember how we told you we're going to give you like a list of parts that you're going to need? One of the weird ones is an 11mm socket. Don't ask me why, but everything back here is a 10. And instead of being a 12, it's an 11. So we'll zap these loose. Love it. Thank you, Milwaukee. All right, skinny guy is out. And not me, the bar. All right, so we have the rear sway bar, we have the brackets on, the bushings on, everything is nicely lubed. Now the bar can go in either upside down or right side up. You are going to want to have the outside of that actually kind of facing up because it goes up and over the links. And I'll put it up into place. And my friend Barry here is going to help go ahead and get this thing kind of snugged up a little bit. Nice. And then we'll just go ahead and do the opposite side here. Nice. All right, that's good. All right, so now we've got the bar basically torqued down up here, and we have to make a decision. Now, do we want to set the thing up a little bit stiffer, a little bit looser? And well, heck, you didn't put a sway bar on the thing to have it looser, so we're going to start stiff. And if we find the need to, we're going to go ahead and go a little bit softer later. To go stiffer, we're going to go ahead and use this forward mounting hole. The instructions are in the Eibach Pro Kit. So we're just going to rotate that out of the way and put it right through there. And boom, just like that. You'll notice with a lot of modern end links is there's an Allen in there, and you're going to see why here in just a second. All right, now that's all great, except for this can actually spin inside the ball joint. We'll come back through here. We're not going to put it on camera, but we'll put an Allen in here with a wrench and just make sure it's not rotating. But now we have it on the stiffest setting. We'll go back to the opposite side of the car and do the exact same thing. All right, so we have the other rear spring. It's got the first one in on the opposite side. That was pretty straightforward. It does take a breaker bar, just letting you know, and a big friend named Barry. We ship them out to you for free. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and do this. Now, one thing I do wanna point out is this does have an orientation here, and this little bit of it, actually, if you take a look at the stamping of the lower control arm, this little part is actually gonna be the most outward facing of the bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and while Barry pulls on the lower control arm, he and I are going to go ahead and wrestle the spring up into place and then go ahead and kind of give the lower control arm a place to go. So let's give it a shot here. Boom. All right. See what we were talking about? That's where this even has that nice little part there in the isolator that goes down in the hole there. And then Barry, go ahead and pull down a little bit and go ahead and come back up. All right. So we're in place. And we'll go ahead and put our jack on the bottom of this, get the lower shock in place. Go a little bit further, get this knuckle in place. This is the toughest part. You need to keep that actually parallel, and you're going to end up pulling down on the spindle while we have the lower control arm up in place. And it's not pretty, but it's part of the job. All right, so we have the shock bolt in place. We're gonna go ahead and put basically the lower control arm through the knuckle through there. I'm gonna go ahead and jack this arm up. And looks like we're pretty close to aligned.
Like we're right there, yeah.
All right. We'll torque these things down. At this point, we can go ahead and lower the jack, and we'll go ahead and reattach the, which you can't see it from that angle, but basically the rear sway bar end links, reattach those, and we'll move to the front of the car.